What's going on YouTube? It is your girl Lauren Finesse, and they've been calling me Pocahontas. Now let me stop. Y'all already see the title. Y'all already know this is some of my favorite things to review, which is the Netflix documentary. But before we get into the video, if this is your first time here, please go ahead, like, comment, and subscribe. And if this is your, I don't know, returning time here, whatever time, I welcome you back with open arms. All right, y'all. So you already know the first things first, we have to get into the cinematography of it all, which is kind of the thing I look for with Netflix documentaries. And the way this was recorded and pieced together was from the raw footage from the police officers' body cams and real interrogation footage from the police station. I loved it. I think putting in that raw footage really made an impact to the story and kind of set the tone so that you can kind of see how many times the police had to come out there. So let's start from the beginning. It comes on with the 911 call. Now, for those of you all who don't know, back in 2023, June of 2023 in Ocala, Florida, there's this woman, there's a white woman, her name is Susan Lawrence, and basically she lives in a neighborhood full of badass kids. Okay, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, because really, y'all, that's what it is. She lived in a neighborhood full of badass kids, and we gotta call it what it is. When we're telling the story, we can be honest. Even though she was wrong, we can be honest that, like, she lived in a neighborhood full of badass kids, okay? And her house, between her and another neighbor's house, is this big lot. And of course, it's 1,000,001 kids on the block, so they all play in that lot, which is next to her place. And they're playing football there, they're running back and forth through there, and I'm sure they're loud. And let me just say this, let me say this. I can understand Susan Lawrence being annoyed at the kids playing by her house all day and all night, 100%. And she lives in Florida, right? So it doesn't get cold. So that means the kids are outside all day, every day, right? Maybe during the school year, they only come out on the weekends or later on in the evening. But as someone who has been annoyed with so many kids being around my neighborhood, it's a thing. It's a thing. And kids are loud and just, rude and being kids. I'll give them that, just being kids. So I understand her frustration. But what happens is she is constantly calling the police on the neighborhood kids, right? She's saying, and the parents, by the way, but she's saying that the kids are loud. The kids are throwing stuff at her. They're throwing stuff at her house. They're being nuisances, right? Or being a nuisance. And so, the police, the footage is coming in of the police constantly having to come out. And so then there is an incident with Ojiki or Ajiki Owens. I don't want to mess up her first name, but it's like Ajike. I think that's the proper pronunciation. But when she said it on the thing, it sounded like she said Ojiki, but whatever. Ajiki Owens, rest in peace to her. There's an incident where I guess this woman was yelling at her son, and something happened where she walked past. She was walking the dog, and she had like she had like a no trespassing sign in her yard, and allegedly Ajike pulled it up and threw it, and it hit her. She like walked past. Everyone says she just picked it up and threw it behind her. She didn't throw it at the lady on purpose, and that it kind of landed at Susan's feet. So what does Susan do? She calls the police. The police come down there, and basically everybody in the neighborhood is like, look, there are kids in this neighborhood. This is a family neighborhood. The kids are playing in the street. The kids are playing in that lot. The kids are playing in their house. They're playing in the driveway. It's just a family, kid-friendly block, right? Maybe not the best place for a single older person, And so the police come and they talk to Ajike. They talk to Susan, and they're like, look, you guys are neighbors. You guys can figure it out. We're not going to arrest her. She didn't assault you, because she was like, oh, she assaulted me. She threw the sign. She hit me with the sign. She was playing the role, trying to play it up. Susan was. And everybody else in the neighborhood was like, no, that's not what happened. And this lady she's the nuisance. So anyway, more calls continue to come. Now, mind you, the documentary is spanned over a year. of just like calls and calls and calls and calls, where this woman was steady, like she was just consistently calling the police over and over and over. And so now the police are coming out, and they're just kind of, they're more annoyed at her, because they're like, man, we keep coming out here. There are kids that live in the neighborhood, and the neighbor who I guess technically owned the property where the lot was, he didn't mind the kids playing there. He had already given the kids permission in the neighborhood to play there, because they're kids and it's a lot. You know, it's a huge lot. Like, you see the aerial view when it first comes on, and it shows basically an aerial view of like Susan's house, Ajike's house, the neighbor's house, and the lot. Like, that's the aerial view when the documentary first come on. It's a substantial size lot. Like, the kids want to play there. And so then something happens where the boys are playing outside, and they claim that someone threw a skate at them, that Susan threw a skate at them and said something to the effect of, go get your mom. So the young man goes and gets his mom, which is Ajike, and they come back. And then there's the scene where the boy, he runs to the neighbor's house who has a Ring camera, and he is visibly, he's like out of breath. You can see that, you know that feeling when something like really traumatic happens to you and it hits you in your chest so hard that you can't breathe. You could feel that through the screen for this little boy, who I think he's like 13, I believe, or 12 or 13, something like that. And so this happens, and he's like, hurry, like, you know, she shot my mom or something, he says. And so all the neighbors start coming out. So, okay, the documentary kind of takes a pause there, because we know what happened. So what happened was Susan Lawrence actually shot through her front door and hit Ajike in her chest, and Ajike died. Okay. And so now you have the body cam footage of the police officers arriving, which the starting scene is the 911 call, like I said. And so they get on the scene, and Ajike's on the ground, and they're trying to do life-saving measures, but it's just not working. They get her in the ambulance, and then so everybody in the neighborhood is like pissed, and they're just standing around, because they're like, why did she shoot her? Why did, you know, there is like a lot of unrest and like anger in the neighborhood against Susan. So they arrest her, they take her down, and basically she plays the I was scared for my life role. Now, they're in Florida, and Florida has the what? Stand your ground law. So I remember when this case happened, and it was kind of like, okay, but she shot through her door. Someone who is terrified, shooting through the door, like escalating the situation through the door, especially when she had called the police already, Susan. It doesn't quite make sense. So anyway, the most powerful scene for me in this entire documentary was, so Ajike had 4 kids. She had like 3 boys, and I think the boys were like 13, maybe I think 10, and then I think she had like a 4-year-old, and then she had like a little girl who I think the little girl's like 5 or something. I don't know. But she had 4 kids. They're saying in the neighborhood, the police are like, well, called the father of the kids, right? Because at this point, she didn't make it, and they know that she has passed away. So they call the father, and they tell the father she passed. And he just is like he can't believe. He's like, oh, like, you know, if you've ever lost someone close to you, there's always this like hope in the back of your brain, like, oh, I hope they make it. They're going to make it. I know it sounds bad. I feel it, but I just hope that they make it. There is a miracle in some, you know. So you can tell that that's kind of like how he was feeling. And so he has to tell the boys their mom died. He has to tell the boys, and they're crying, and they're, you know, the scene is chaotic. So the father and the police, they all like, they pull the boys off to the side. And I think the other woman who was there, I think was like the stepmom. They all pull the boys to the side, and the father says like, you know, I love you, right? You know, your mom loves you, right? And then he tells them, your mom didn't make it. And the bigger boy, the 13-year-old, the one that like ran and was saying, call the police, he just collapses. He just collapses. And y'all, I can't even imagine having to tell your children that their mom died while on the scene. while you saw this happen, you saw your mom get shot, you saw, you know what I mean? Like, you saw everything. And so, like, it's like the night just keeps getting worse and building and building and building. And that baby just collapsed. He just collapsed. And so now the kids are crying. The neighborhood is crying. It's sad. It's very sad. Back at the station, when they first started the investigation, they're questioning Susan. And like I said, she's like, oh, I was scared for my life, whatever. Now, as the investigation goes on, of course, everybody was pissed that she wasn't in jail. Like, you shot someone. Why is this woman not in jail? Well, you know, they had to figure out, she's saying she was scared for her life and that Ajike was bamming on her door. And she felt like Ajike was going to come through the door. So they're doing their investigation. And while they're doing the investigation, it comes out like that Susan had been Googling stand your ground law. And, you know, what happens if you shoot someone and what, like, she was basically, that Google search will always show the premeditation of it all. It will. So now they're like, wait a minute, ma'am, you're so afraid and things like that, but you were Google searching the stand your ground law. You were Google searching different things right, you know, before this happened. I think it was like the same day or the night before. So she clearly had this on her mind that if I encounter this woman again and her kids, I'm going to shoot her. And that's exactly what she did. So the police were like, look, it ain't looking good for you because you're not this scared, innocent person. Now, I will say this. There was another part in the documentary, because this woman was crazy. Legit. Susan was crazy. Let's just start there. There was another part of the documentary where she was in some lot, like some vacant lot, and I guess they closed the gate, and she was like ramming her truck with the gate. And some guy called the police on her. And when the police got to her house, she was acting like she didn't know what was going on. And they were like, okay, well, the man want to press charges. So come on, we finna arrest you. And she's like, no. I was raped before. So when I got closed in, you know, it's a trauma response because I've been raped before. And I was just like, this woman is so conniving. Susan Lawrence was conniving. There is no doubt about it. Conniving. So she just had a history of just being a bitch and conniving and just mean and mad at the world. So anyway, so they're like, hey, they gave her a piece of paper. They're like, if you want to write something to these kids who don't have a mom anymore, you know, you don't have to, right? They were like, you don't have to, but listen, if you want to write a letter to the family, to these children that lost their mom, you know, we'll leave a pen and pad here and you can. So they leave her in the interrogation room, and she does write like a little note that's like, I'm sorry, but I feared for my life. Like, it was a terrible type of apology to put like your feelings into a letter that should be about them. Like, it's not quite, it's like the, I'm sorry if I offended you, but type of vibes. That's what it gave me. So anyway, she was found guilty recently. I think she got manslaughter, and I think she got like 20 years or 25 years or something like that. She did get sentenced recently, which was good. But let me say this. Like I said, a part of me understands noisy, annoying kid neighbors in your neighborhood. I gotta tell you, my neighbor who I share my bedroom wall with, my neighbor on that side, I don't know how old he is. I think they said he's like a young man, whatever. Every Wednesday and Sunday night, he is blasting music. I have absolutely had to call my community police, which not the police department, but within my community. I live in a gated community and we have like a security. I've had to call them to say, hey, can you tell them to cut it down? Like, why is it 2:00 in the morning on a Wednesday night, on a Sunday night? I have to get up. I have things to do. So I understand loud and annoying neighbors. Before I moved here, the place I was in before, my neighbors, I was on the second floor. I had neighbors over me. When I tell you, these people were having sex every day. And like, shout out to y'all for having a healthy sex life. I don't know if they were trying for a baby. I don't know. Nymphomaniacs, I don't know. But the way that they were having sex every day was so rude, and just like, you don't live in a house, right? There's certain things that you have to be cognizant of when you live where you share a wall. Now, in this particular case, this woman did not share a wall with any of these kids. They just were playing at the park or the lot next to her house. So while I understand annoying neighbors, trust me, I do, it kind of gave, no, you're just a mean old lady. And I get it, that can be annoying. Move. You're literally on like a cul-de-sac type family block that has a bunch of kids on it. And it wasn't just Ajike's kids, right? Like everybody in the neighborhood, there were like 15 kids, like ranging from ages from like 4 to 16. You had a group of older kids, a group of like middle school kids, a group of younger kids, and they're all playing with each other. That's just the neighborhood. And I think one of the police officers said that, like, why don't you move? Because this is a family neighborhood, and if you're looking for peace and quiet, ma'am, this is not the block. It just isn't. And it sucks, yeah, because maybe you can't move, right? You don't know people's finances and things like that. But if you're somewhere and you're not happy, then the first chance you get, you should move. And unfortunately, this did not end in that way. And that woman killed that lady, took her away from her children, which is the ultimate sad part. Like, she was taken away from her children for nothing. Do I believe that she knocked on her door aggressively? I do, because the boys were saying that Susan had threw skates at them. So I do believe she went over there, which was the right thing to do. Do not argue with my children. Do not throw things at my children. If my children are doing something that they shouldn't be doing, as an adult, you come and get me. And that's what Ajike was saying. She was telling the police, like, I told my kids, don't disrespect her. Like, yes, she's irritating. She's a bit of a Karen, but you don't disrespect her because you are a child and I'm an adult. If she does something to you, come and get me. And that's what the boys did. She allegedly was throwing skates at them, throwing things at them. And so the boys went and got their mom. And it just sucks because it definitely just didn't need to go there. And she almost could have opened the door and pointed the gun at her and said, get off my property now. Like, I would have even taken that. But to actually pull the trigger and to say you were in fear for your life from behind a closed, locked door, no, it wasn't that. So, did y'all see The Perfect Neighbor on Netflix? Listen, if you haven't, I definitely would recommend going to watch it. It's a good Netflix documentary. The story is very sad, but the way that it's shot with the raw footage is really good. It's captivating. And so, okay, Netflix, you got another one under your belt. And let me just real quick, because now we at the end. So Perfect Neighbor was good. Love is Blind.